Tell me about your career.
Well, right now, Brian, I'm at Fox Sports Radio National. Been there 3 years. I host a show every Saturday night called Straight Out of Vegas. It's from 11 p.m. to midnight Pacific. Syndicated on 360 stations, Sirius XM Channel 83, iHeartRadio, and got about 1 million listeners. And prior to that, I spent many years here at ESPN 1100 in Las Vegas, primarily doing the Running Rebels, UNLV Running Rebels pre and post game show, among other duties. I spent many years in Detroit, CBS Radio, covering the Detroit Lions. I did the pre and post game. Worked with Rob Parker and Mark Wilson, and we covered the World Series and the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals and Major League Baseball All-Star Game and all sorts of events. And I actually cut my teeth prior to that in Ann Arbor at the WTK 1050, which is the flagship station of University of Michigan football. So, fairly long career. I've been on the airwaves one way or another since June of '94.
Wow, that's impressive. Mr. Bernie, all right, okay. What advice would you give for people that want to be in sports radio? I'm a aspiring sports radio host, and this is kind of the reason why I started this podcast, is trying to get my name out there and build my brand. So what advice would you give to an aspiring sports radio host?
Well, I really respect what you did. It's all about initiative, Brian. You took initiative. You're reaching out to people. I've seen some of the other videos you've done with people like, Jason Whitlock and some pretty big names. So start there, initiative, right? Reach out to people, let them know what you want, be specific. And as you go about your career, decide what specifically you want to do. Do you want to be in TV? Do you want to be in radio? If you're in radio, do you want to be behind the mic? Do you want to be a producer? Do you want to be a sound engineer? Try to rifle shoot as best as you can. And when you know what you want, draw a circle where you live and start approaching those stations that do that. Bring them your resume, be creative, bring them a pizza, bring them donuts, get the name of the person that makes the decision. Be creative, be persistent without being a nudge. And eventually someone's going to open the door for you. Now, I might not pay right away, but when they open that door, all you want to impress upon them is how hard you're willing to work. And it'll start from there, and you'd be surprised where you can go.
All right. March Madness is just finished. It was a very interesting tournament. I thought Indianapolis did a great job hosting, considered the circumstances. What were your overall thoughts on March Madness?
It was one of my favorite tournaments of all time because I know how much pressure these kids had. There were over 14 upsets. There were, we didn't rely on the blue bloods this year like Duke and Kentucky, no Indiana. And there were other schools like Loyola of Chicago, Oral Roberts, and Gonzaga, who's had an interesting program for years. Baylor had a terrible COVID break. They lost a couple of weeks, and they were able to overcome that. When you look what Scott Drew had to do when he took that program over in 2003, there'd been a murder, there'd been all kinds of NCAA violations, and it's incredible to think that they've now won a national championship. That would be like if someone took over Kansas football tomorrow and all of a sudden they win a national championship in 10 years. So what I liked most about the tournament was that it was extremely competitive. It was unique. And I thought, all the teams played well and played hard. And because of the upsets and the potential Cinderella stories, like any other tournament, it had its share of highlights. I mean, look how Gonzaga had to beat UCLA Saturday night when Jalen Suggs hit that half-court shot, or they were all set to go double overtime. Then we come to find out, Brian, and he practices that shot every day in practice for 10 or 15 minutes. And Gonzaga was coached. There was 3.3 seconds left on the clock. Gonzaga was coached to hustle the ball in and get into transition after made baskets. And so they were sort of prepared for that moment. People called it lucky, but you make your own luck in life. Look at Johnny Juzang. What a household name he became. He couldn't, it wasn't working out of Kentucky. He goes to UCLA, one of the all-time leading UCLA scorers in the tournament, alongside some big names like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Walton. So, again, gave an opportunity for young men to shine.
Yeah, it was really, really nice to see UCLA come back, especially it's good when the Blue Bloods are doing well for any sport, and it was nice to see them make a run. And I kind of feel a little bit sorry for Gonzaga, not because they lost the title, but because Mark Few, I think he's a good guy, and hopefully he can get the job done. I think the one thing I think that they got exposed was they need more athletes, like not just more athletes, but more athletes that can do more on the court. If you just look at Baylor's roster compared to Gonzaga, they were deeper, but not just deeper. They had more guys that could do multiple things on the court, and that's why I think they won pretty easily. All right.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. Baylor swarmed them, and they reminded me of the old UNLV teams. I would say one thing though. I think the emotion of having to come down from Saturday night, how much they spent, you know, full credit to Baylor. If they played again Wednesday, the same thing might happen. But I think there's a bit of a context to this that Gonzaga was coming down off this incredible high, and they had to be emotionally spent. But the first 3 minutes of the game, give Baylor credit because they were all over it.
Yeah. Yeah, I also will give UCLA credit for Baylor winning because they really pushed Gonzaga to the limit. In my opinion, they probably should have beaten them, but you know how it is. All right, what are
Sure.
your thoughts on the Deshaun Watson case? It's really gotten interesting how it's unfolded. First started off few, and now I think there's 22. And I think not only has the NFL gotten involved, the Houston police has gotten involved. It's really become a really, really big case. What are your thoughts on it? And do you think there's a chance he may not play this season?
There's a chance. We don't know how fast this unfolds. What I've decided to do, and I was on Fox Sports Sunday night from 5 to 8, sitting in for Jonas Knox and Brady Quinn along with Aaron. Uh, I'm not going to convict Deshaun Watson in the media. The facts have to come out, and right now it's a civil matter. I don't know if it'll become a criminal matter. Where I have focused primarily is how does this affect his career now that the NFL is investigating. So, is there a chance he could be put on the exempt list? Maybe, but that won't happen for a while because there's nothing to exempt him from. They haven't started OTAs, they haven't had mini camp, they haven't had certainly any practices or games. But after the draft, that'll start to speed up. Could he be suspended? Well, Roger Goodell, he kind of runs a tight ship, and that's what happened to Ezekiel Elliott. And the baseline suspension is 6 games. That has to do with the personal conduct policy. Now, the personal conduct policy has nothing to do with the law. It's an NFL guideline that's rooted in PR. It's rooted in image. The NFL wants to protect their shield. So if they decide that the integrity of the NFL has been besmirched or the public trust has been violated and how they view the NFL, he could be suspended. The baseline is 6 games. Beyond that, I think we just have to let the facts come out. Right now, it's being played in the court of public opinion by a couple of high-profile attorneys, and I just don't go for that because if you and I were ever accused of something that we didn't do, we wouldn't like it if it was out there in the media. So I think this has to be played out, and we'll just see what happens.
What are your thoughts on it? Kind of brings up another thing. Sometimes when victims of sexual harassment or sexual abuse, when they come out at certain times, what are your thoughts on that? And I know it's a sensitive issue, so you got to kind of be careful with what you say. But some people may think like the timing is very, very interesting. What do you think about that?
I don't know what do you mean by that? I don't know what you mean by that.
Like when I mean like let's say, for example, person A commits or is accused of sexual harassment, but the person accusing them comes out maybe 3, 4 months later. What are your thoughts on that? And I know it's difficult. You still have to do an investigation, but what do you think about that?
I think it's a highly individual situation, and this causes me to craft an answer. I'm not professionally qualified, but I'll give you an opinion because you didn't ask me a question to sidestep it. I think in many cases women are afraid to come forward because they're not treated fairly and they're not believed, and I think they're sensitive or they're embarrassed, and there's a lot of emotions involved. And I think when they are, they state their case in private to professional people that know how to ascertain these things, then maybe over time they work up the courage to come forth and go public. That's the only thing I can think of because I think these are probably very traumatic, emotional events that I can't really relate to, and everybody's going to deal with them differently. But I do know that I think in cases where women have delayed, I think they were afraid. They were afraid of backlash. They were afraid of embarrassment. They were afraid of losing their privacy. All of those things. I'm guessing that's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, I think I agree with you along those lines. I wish if there's a way where you could still do it and just maybe just be anonymous. I think that probably the best way for everybody involved. But you know how we are in today's media. Everybody wants names and all the information. All right. What story are you looking forward to for the remainder of this year? What is it could be any sport. What story are you looking forward to?
There's a few. First of all, I would really like it that we can get past COVID once and for all and see packed stadiums back. I would really love it when the NFL rolls around in the fall, the stadiums are packed. If we have to wear masks, fine. But I'd like to see full stadiums in college football. I heard an excerpt from the Texas Rangers game Monday in which there was a pretty full stadium, and you heard that ambient crowd noise. It was amazing. I mean, we hadn't really heard that in a year, and it really added something. I can't tell you how pleasing it was to hear that. The second thing is, I'd really like to see Dak and the Dallas Cowboys win a Super Bowl. Jerry if you get to know Jerry Jones, he's a pretty good guy. He's not perfect. None of us are perfect, but he's paid all of his stars. Football is better when the Cowboys are doing well because people either hate them or they love them. And the truth of the matter is, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. You have to be emotionally invested to hate something. So for those people who hate the Cowboys or those people who love the Cowboys, I just think the NFL is better when the Cowboys do well. And I always root for the story. Then can the Lakers and LeBron repeat, or can the Brooklyn Nets with their trio, can they get it done? Really looking forward to the NBA playoffs. And after that, you know, it's funny. Every day you wake up, there's something new in the news, and I guess we'll just have to react to that when they see it. But those are things at the top of the mind, off the top of my head, as you ask.
Yeah, the Cowboys will be very interesting if they won. They're the biggest brand in all sports, in my opinion, and
Yeah, true.
it'll be very interesting if they won. And also, it'll be interesting to see. I'm a Lakers fan, but if I had to bet money today, I don't think we're going to repeat. One, there's just way too many really, really good teams that's in our way, and just health. I just don't know if what Anthony Davis and LeBron are going to look like when they come back. All right.
That's good. Hopefully
Yeah.
they're healthy. Hopefully they're healthy. Yes.
All right. What are your thoughts on the MLB pulled their game out of Georgia? What do you have an opinion on that? And then moved it to Colorado yesterday.
Yeah. My concern is that there will be a lot of collateral damage in the area. Here's what I mean by that, Brian. So there are a lot of local businesses that would have benefited to the tune of $100 million. Those are the words of the mouth of the Atlanta mayor. So in order to do this and removing it, businesses that were counting on that money will no longer get that money. And so that's one of the issues here that they have to reconcile. Beyond that, look, I react to stories. I don't have much of an opinion either way. I will also say this, that Hank Aaron was going to be honored that day. And there are folks who have said he would have wanted it this way. And I don't agree. I spent a day with Hank Aaron in 1991 at the National Sports Collectors Convention, the National Sports Collectors Convention in Anaheim. My boss, Mike Burkus, was the promoter. I was working with him, and I was working the green room. And Hank, I don't know if I've met a more elegant, affable guy than Hank Aaron. And you're saying this is a home run king. You shake his hand, and I'm about 5'11". He's only about my size. We got to talking, and we talked about some of the indignities he suffered. I mean, can you imagine chasing Babe Ruth's record and getting the death threats and the hate mail? That was bad enough. But he told me a story I never forgot, and it's a brace yourself for this story. So he told me when he was in the minor leagues, they were traveling in a southern city, and they went to have dinner. And the restaurant they went to, the black players were allowed to eat, but they all had to sit in a separate room. And when they were done eating, they walked out the back, and as they walked toward the team bus, they heard the restaurant employees smashing plates against the wall. And Hank told me, he said, that really hurt, because if dogs had eaten off those plates, they would have washed them. I never forgot that. And I think of this dignified man, this affable man, this amazing human being that went on in the next 30 years to be an American icon, break Babe Ruth's record. He was very gracious when Barry Bonds passed him, to have to suffer those indignities, and it didn't stop him from being the man he became and being revered. Now he won't be honored because they're removing it. So it's my way of saying that whatever happens in life, there are going to be actions and consequences on the other side that people have to weigh, and whether or not, the decisions are worth it.
Yeah, I think it's going to kind of be a similar situation to the NBA when they moved the All Star game
Charlotte.
out of Charlotte. I think they'll
Yep.
eventually go back. I wish if there's a way they could have like had more dialogue before making such a big decision. Because not
That's an
just
excellent
yeah,
point.
because not
That's
just
an excellent point.
Atlanta is one of the most more black cities in America. So it's not just hurting businesses, it's hurting a lot of black people too. And you're also honoring Hank Aaron. I think it was a mistake. And hopefully, I hope that we can have more dialogue before you start making such drastic decisions because I think it's sending a wrong message long term for
Well, that's an excellent, again. Okay, I would say that's an excellent journalistic point on your part, and I'll tell you why. Because it does feel like the decision made was made before all voices were heard. So because all voices weren't heard, they weren't able to accurately weigh out the pros and cons, including apparently the Atlanta mayor. And we're all trying to recover from COVID. I spent a lot of time in Atlanta. It's a wonderful city, and I don't know what to say above and beyond that. While the decision was made, to your point, perhaps if cooler heads had prevailed, they might have found some happy medium. So no one would they would have got the message across without the local folks like you just mentioned having to suffer economically for this.
All right, it's been a pleasure. I'm thankful you were able to join me today. I wish you nothing but the best, and hopefully, if I make it, I'll remember this.